So welcome to S2 Chemistry, and we're going to be studying the structure of the Earth and rocks within this lesson. So you might have covered this in geography already, but the Earth has 4 layers. On the inside, we have an inner core, and that inner core is solid and it's mostly made of metal. Then we have the outer core, which is liquid, but it's also very high temperature. Then the next layer, we call that the mantle, and that's where we would find lava. So whenever a volcano erupts, the material from the mantle makes its way onto the surface of the Earth. And covering the outer surface of the Earth is what we call the crust. And that crust is solid and is made up of rocks, and some of those rocks will be covered in water. Some of those rocks will be covered in plants and animals. So the Earth's crust is made up of rock, and there are 3 types of rock that you need to know about: sedimentary rocks, igneous rocks, and metamorphic rocks. Now, rocks are made of minerals that fit together. So rocks look different and will have different colours depending on the minerals inside them. And minerals are just chemical compounds. The minerals can be grainy, so look a bit like sand that's been stuck together, or it can be crystals, so look a bit like gemstones and be very shiny. And the minerals within a rock can be different colours, shapes, and sizes. And different rocks will contain different minerals and therefore be different colours, shapes, and sizes. So within this lesson, we are going to evaluate a range of data to be able to describe our basic types of rocks and minerals. So we want to be able to state that the Earth's crust is made up of rock, be able to say the 3 main types of rock: sedimentary, igneous, and metamorphic, and be able to describe the characteristics of each type of rock. So if we look here, this is a canyon, and we can see lots of different layers of rock in that photograph. And each different layer of rock will be made up of a different type of rock. And the study of rocks, or the study of the Earth's crust, is called geology. Geology comes from the word ge for earth and logos for study. So it's the study of the earth. Now, you can take this time now, if you want to pause the video, to think of as many types of rock that you can think of. Okay, if you paused the video and came back, here are some of the ones that we thought you might have come up with. So chalk, granite, marble, basalt, sandstone, shale, quartzite, coal, slate, limestone. All of those examples will be in your summary notes. Some other types of rock that you might have thought of, and one that a lot of people like to think of, is obsidian. And obsidian is a type of rock that looks a bit like black glass. That's another example. Now, when we talk about rocks, there are 3 categories. The first category are igneous rocks. The second category are sedimentary rocks. And the third type are metamorphic rocks. You need to remember those 3 words: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. So in class, when you're doing this lesson, you will be given a lot of different types of rock to look at. And you will be told what category of rock they belong to, and you'll be looking for common features, so things that make them similar to one another. So here are some igneous rocks. So basalt is an example of an igneous rock, as is granite. Now granite is very common rock in Scotland, and basalt, that picture is of the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland, and it's a famous tourist attraction in Northern Ireland, and it's made up of hexagonal columns, all made of basalt, and they are igneous rocks. Now when you look at those rocks closely, you would see that inside them you can see crystals. So the minerals are very crystalline, and so they have a bit of a shine whenever you rotate them in the light. They'll reflect the light back. So crystals indicate that a rock is igneous. These are all sedimentary rocks. So sandstone, shale, limestone, and even coal is considered a type of rock. And limestone is also known as chalk. When you look at these ones carefully, you'll notice that these rocks have grains, so they look a bit sandy. They'll also feel a bit rough to the touch, and you also might see that they look like they formed in layers. So it might look like there are lines running through the rock as well. So grainy and maybe having lines running through it indicates that a rock is sedimentary. Remember, igneous rocks had crystals and sedimentary rocks have grains. Now these final three are examples of metamorphic rocks: marble, slate, and quartzite. Now, some of these look a bit shiny and some of them look a bit grainy, but what's common to all of those, and if you get the opportunity to touch or feel these rocks in class, you'll notice that they are quite hard. And so metamorphic rocks, that's one of the main properties of them. They're hard. Now, igneous rocks are also hard, but if a rock is soft, that means it's sedimentary. So if we go over those three characteristics again, crystals mean that the rock is igneous, grains mean that the rock is sedimentary, and being very hard indicates that it's metamorphic, but it could also be igneous. Okay, so crystals for igneous, and examples of igneous rocks: granite and basalt. Grains mean sedimentary rock, like sandstone and chalk, and a hard surface indicates that it's usually metamorphic. And two examples of metamorphic rocks are marble and slate. Now, what you'll be doing in class, hopefully you'll get the opportunity to do this practical activity, which is to look at rocks in a bit more detail. And you'll be given a sample of different rocks, and you'll be given your rocks, you'll be given some acid to test the rocks with, and you'll also be given a nail to scratch the surface of the rock. So with the acid, you'll be looking for, is there a sign of a chemical reaction happening? And with the nail, when you're scratching the surface of the rock, you're going to be seeing, is it soft or is it hard? Now, after you've tested the rocks, you should be able to see a pattern. So the crystals indicate it's igneous rock. They do not react with acid, and they are hard. So it would be quite difficult to make a mark on the igneous rock with the nail. The sedimentary rocks, well, the sedimentary rocks, some of them will react with acid. Chalk, limestone will react with acid. And you will find that all of the sedimentary rocks are soft. So when you scrape them with the nail, you'll see some of the rock coming apart as you scratch it. So some sedimentary rock reacts with acid, and all sedimentary rock is soft. And for your metamorphic rocks, they would not have reacted with any acid, and when you scratch them with a nail, they would have been very hard to make a mark on, and you definitely wouldn't have taken away any rock by scratching it. So when it comes to rocks, there are other words that we can use to describe them. So the first thing that we can describe rocks as being is hard or soft. We've already talked about how igneous and metamorphic rocks are hard. That means that if you try and scratch them with a nail, you won't break the rock apart at all, and you'll only maybe leave a small mark on it. Soft rocks, like sedimentary rocks, if you scratch them with a nail, that means that you'll easily make a mark, and you might even break the rock just using the nail. The next set of words that we can use are porous or non-porous. So a porous rock will usually feel quite rough, and it'll have tiny holes that allow water to get in. A non-porous rock is one that doesn't have these tiny holes, and it'll feel a lot smoother, and it will not let any water in. Now, if a rock can let water in and is porous, we would describe it as being permeable. So a porous rock is permeable because it lets water in. A non-porous rock is impermeable and will not let water in it at all. Now, some types of rock are easily broken down with chemicals. You'll have seen this if you did this experiment in class and tried the acid on some rocks. You'll see that you got fizzing with some of the rocks, like limestone and chalk. That is because limestone and chalk, which are sedimentary rocks, are made of calcium carbonate, and calcium carbonate will react with acid. And so if acid rain falls on anything made out of limestone or chalk, a chemical reaction will happen. And we can see signs of that reaction having happened. So if we look at statues over time, we can see that they make new soluble substances, so that means that they dissolve, and those are washed away, and we describe the rock as being weathered. So acid rain will cause statues to lose some of the definition that they started with, and so faces will lose their features. And this can happen to buildings as well as statues. So what we've got now are a set of show me questions if you want to practice. If you do not want to practice any of these questions, that's the content of the video over, but if you want to watch on and try and see what you can remember from the video. So what were the three types of rock? Those were igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary. Our next question. What indicates that a rock is igneous? For example, granite. What is inside the rock that indicates that it's igneous? Well, the answer to that one is crystals. For our next one, what indicates that a rock is sedimentary? For example, sandstone. What about the rock indicates that it is sedimentary? The answer to that one is grains. Now, igneous rocks, they tend to be what? They tend to be hard. Sedimentary and metamorphic rocks tend to be soft. Metamorphic rocks can be hard as well, though. And just to summarize, this is what you can hopefully be able to do now that you've watched this video and tried those questions. You can talk about the Earth's crust being made up of rock. You can name the three types of rock, sedimentary, igneous, and metamorphic. And you can describe the characteristics of each type of rock. So igneous rocks contain crystals, sedimentary rocks contain grains, and metamorphic rocks are usually hard. That's been your first lesson in being a chemist, and there'll be more videos to come. So thank you for your attention.